Now, I've heard some crazy ideas from people that are actually Christians. I've heard people tell me, Tommy, what's the sense in saving up money if in the end you're basically going to die? And I'm saying to them, hey, why would I not try to be responsible with my money now instead of having to be a slave to money and to wages forever? Does that make sense for you? Okay. I've heard people say, I don't worry about those things because I know God is going to provide. It's like they just want to be irresponsible. So the point of this entire video is, if you are a Christian, how do you approach finances from a point of view where you don't start to basically worship money, where money is just a tool? It is an instrument that you actually use, okay? How do you actually go about that? That is what this entire video is actually about. And by the way, for those people that think that basically money is evil, the answer is, if you truly believe that money is evil and that the people that actually have a lot of money are bad people, then that's the reason why most likely you're basically not trying to be responsible with money. You're not trying to actually grow your wealth because you believe that if you become one of those people, well, you're probably going to become a bad person. So if you believe that, you're not going to be trying, all right? But it's like the same thing in a way. If I think that people that are physically fit and healthy are evil, then guess what? I'm not going to exercise or eat healthy because the end result of those things is going to be a good physique and good health. If I don't believe that money is a good thing, I'm not going to be responsible because the end result of being responsible with money is going to be to have more money, all right? That's the idea. But let's get right into this video, and I'm going to be using a lot of Bible for this video because the Bible is the authority. It shouldn't be what do I think, although I know a lot about finance, but is what is the Bible saying about these subjects overall? So do me a favor and smash the like button. The algorithm picks it up and shows it to more people out there. So I appreciate a ton when you guys actually like these videos, if you actually like them. Now, the very first thing, guys, is if you are not faithful with what you have right now, you cannot expect that having more is going to all of a sudden fix your problems. Here's where this idea actually comes from. I know people that say the reason I don't have any money is because I just don't get a lot of money, all right? We have very little money. Now, here's what the Bible says in Luke 16:10. One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much. And one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much. What that basically means is, if you can't be trusted with a little, you cannot be trusted with a lot. Now, here is a real life representation of this, okay? When it comes to building wealth, if you can't build wealth or manage the little money you have right now, giving you more money is not going to solve your financial issues. That's why people, for example, that win the lottery, they win the lottery, right? And then 5 years later, most of them go broke. People become athletes, and all of a sudden, years later, they go broke. Because if you never learn how to manage money, the little money you have right now, you're never going to be able to manage more money. So, personal story here. When I was basically trying to learn more about money, at this time I was not a Christian, all I was making per week was $60. I learned how to manage that $60, and then eventually that grew into more money and more money and more money and more money. But when I made more money and I did not know how to manage it, all that money would just be wasted. So here's my first step for you guys, okay? Create a budget. Know exactly how much money you're spending and put it into categories. So that means basically, is this a need? Is it a want? Be honest, okay? And then on top of that, know exactly what your income is per month. I know a lot of people, and it's kind of embarrassing, that don't know how much money they make per month. They're like, I don't know, I just got paid. I don't know. That's kind of crazy, okay? You're spending your valuable hours, 8 hours most likely a day, in an office or doing some work, and you're exchanging that for money, and you don't even know how much money you're getting paid. You need to know these numbers. You should know your numbers, and your overall goal should basically be to spend less money than you actually make, to have a surplus. Now, number two, and the second way to actually manage your money, is to understand that debt is not your friend, and it's something that you actually want to avoid as much as you possibly can, okay? Although sometimes you will need to go into debt, you want to basically avoid it as much as possible. Now, one of my favorite pastors out there, his name is Paul Washer, and he says that people have very little faith. And here's why. Because when people actually want something and they don't get it when they want it, they go ahead and they try to do it with their own power, and they become bonded to whatever it is they actually want. So one example he actually gave was people are praying for a car. They don't get the car when they actually want it. They take the matters into their own hands. They go out there and buy the car. Now they're bonded to it because they have a whole bunch of car payments and a whole bunch of problems every single month to try to sustain this car instead of having faith, okay? So you're probably thinking, Tommy, what faith can I have when I actually need something and I need to get it and it's not actually happening when I actually want it to happen, okay? That's the definition of faith, honestly. You gotta have faith. But here's what the Bible says about this, okay? Proverbs 22:7. It's a verse when it comes to debt, okay? And it says, the rich rules over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. That is a biblical principle overall. You might try to say like, no, I'm not a slave to the person I owe money to. I can afford the payments. I can do all this stuff. But in the end, you are bonded to these things. And one thing I've seen in church and in individuals, I have seen a lot of Christians that are very materialistic and they don't even know it because society just kind of shoves it in your face and you start to believe these things, okay? I've seen Christians that they're so obsessed with a type of house they actually want, they get themselves bonded to a house. They buy the house, now they're stuck with it for 30 years making all these payments. They want a car, they go ahead and they buy the car. Now, here's a testament to faith. If you can't get what you want right now, get what's available to you right now, and you can actually afford without being bonded to it. So if you want a car, you need a car. You don't need that car. So get the car you can afford to pay for in cash. If you want a home, buy a home once you're debt free. Once you have a fully funded emergency account and everything else, okay? And you buy the home you can afford to pay off in less than 15 years because the whole goal is to be able to pay off this home, okay? Even in the Bible, when you have people basically becoming slaves in a way and working for a certain period of time to then get something else, okay? They weren't working for 30, 40 years. They were trying to get what they wanted as fast as it possibly could. It was like a necessary evil in a way. Not an evil, but a necessary something that you don't really want to do. No one wants to work for 15 years to pay off a home. But that's way better than waiting 30 years or than paying rent forever. That's the whole idea. So what's the principle here? Avoid debt like the plague and prepare yourself as best as possible. And if you have debt right now, I recommend one thing. Look up the snowball method, TommyBryson, or the avalanche method, TommyBryson. Those videos are going to pop up and it's going to show you exactly how to pay off debt. If you're interested in buying a home, look up, for example, the 33% rule, TommyBryson, on YouTube, and it's going to show you exactly how to buy a home the right way so you're mortgage free in less than 15 years. That's the idea. Now, the third principle is you should have, for example, built up a backup plan or like an emergency account. And here's where this principle actually comes from. By the way, I don't like when people have, for example, this type of lifestyle where they're always living on the edge, where you make just enough to cover everything, and if things stop for you, you're basically in trouble. You have no savings, you have nothing whatsoever. That is not where you actually want to be. Now, here's what I think about this topic. I think people put a lot of reliance when it comes to the government, and I think people don't actually basically uphold their role when it comes to providing, okay? So number one, the government is not established to take care of you, okay? It is not there to say, if you lose your job, well, we're going to take care of you. I think it's a good thing when people are actually able to get taken care of in some ways like this, but that is not the government's main role. You should have your own stuff, like your own emergency account set up. So if that basically falls apart, you have something to take care of yourself, okay? So here's what the Bible says in Romans 13:4. It says, for he is God's servant, talking about the government, for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is a servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath of the wrongdoers. So the government is not established to take care of you financial. It is there to basically punish the wrongdoers and basically uphold the good. That is what the government is put there for. So when you put your trust in the government to take care of you financially, You're putting your trust in the wrong things, okay? And then here's what it says in 1 Timothy 5:8, okay? It says, "But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." The point being that I'm trying to make here is that you should have your bases covered. You shouldn't be one of those people that is just basically rolling through life and basically YOLOing everything and buying whatever you want to buy and not worrying about anything that could go wrong, because things will go wrong. And by the way, there's a very good verse, or a very good sermon in the Bible, is when Jesus basically talks about that if God can take care or takes care of the birds, why wouldn't he take care of you? Don't you mean more to him than birds do, basically, right? And the answer is yes. No matter what, God is going to take care of you and sustain his creation. But that does not mean you're not responsible. All right? That's the idea. You have to be responsible. The whole idea that it's like saying, yeah, I'll do whatever I want because my mom's going to take care of me, right? No, there are consequences to not doing what you should be doing. That's the idea. Now, the fourth principle here, when it comes to actually investing and buying a home, these are places where people actually have a lot of mix-ups, because people always assume that if you're trying to build wealth in your investment account, then in reality, isn't that like wrong, right? It's like wrong because you're trying to have more money than you actually need. The truth is, to have more money than you need takes a lot more work than you actually think. And here's what I mean, okay? I was having a conversation with one of my friends and he tells me, "Tommy, aren't you tired of just saving money and all this stuff?" And I told him, no. Like, do you think I have like billions of dollars or whatever? I'm basically just trying to build up a nest egg to be able to take care of me and pay off my bills passively. Because either way, you're making an exchange every single time you go to work. When you go to work, you trade your time for money. And if you're able to trade your time for money, spend less than you make, use that difference to invest, to have that money make you money, then you can use that money so that way you can stop exchanging your time for money. And that puts you in a much better position overall. That's what you're trying to avoid, okay? You're trying to avoid bondage to employment. You're not trying to amass wealth just to have it, but you're trying to build it up to a point where you can be taken care of in a way. So what are these two ways to actually do it? But before I actually get there are two stories I actually want to share in the Bible, because people think that amassing wealth is the wrong thing. I don't think so, okay? Now, let's look at, for example, Abraham and Lot. Lot went to Gomorrah because basically they couldn't be in the same place because both of them had way too much. What does that mean? Does that mean Abraham is a bad person because he had a lot? Does it mean Lot is a bad person because he had a lot? The answer is no. What about Job? Job had a lot of resources that God basically gave him. All these men in reality were very responsible with what God gave them. Basically saying that if you're able to actually have a resource like income, and by the way, it's not like just because you have an income doesn't make you rich. No, you have to be responsible with it. Like the example of the talents, he gives people talents or whatever. One buried it, one invested it, made a little, the other one invested it, made a lot more. The answer is you have to make the best of the income you actually have, okay? That's the whole idea. So here's my advice. If you're trying to basically invest, my only investment is into the S&P 500. That's where I put my money. I would only invest like 10% if I don't have a paid off home. Once I'm basically trying to buy a home, I'm buying a home using the 33% rule. That's in one of my videos. I'm gonna put the link down below. You can watch that full video. And I'm gonna try to pay that home off as fast as I possibly can in less than 15 years. Once I own that home, I can invest more money into passive income in a way. But if you have a paid off home, your cost of living becomes so low that effectively you don't have to work as hard as you used to. And I mean, you don't have to trade as many hours as you did before. Because if your mortgage is like $1,000, just an example, and it takes you like 40 hours to make $1,000, that's 40 hours you no longer have to work. That's the idea. And yes, in life, you can have enjoyment, you can have vacations, but again, you cannot be an idiot where you're having enjoyments and vacations and you're not being responsible. And everyone should try to get at least a 3 month emergency account. That is super, super important. And have that money in a separate savings accounts. Now, these are principles when you actually want to get good with money. Having little to no debt is amazing. Having a fully funded emergency account and investing into the future, and then having a paid off home. You do all these things little by little, step by step, but it can take a long time. But guess what? It takes a long time. It's not going to happen overnight. And being irresponsible doesn't make it better either. It just puts you in a worse position. But guys, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. God bless you guys. And as always, TommyBryson out. By the way, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this type of content. Peace.